time. I don't want to keep it too long tonight. I know that you're here, a lot of you, before your dinner hour on your own time or not, so I want to get started. First of all, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you. The intent of the overview, the momentum that we do every several months, is to give you an understanding in a general way of the programs, the processes, and all the initiatives and what we've accomplished as a team during that last 3.5, 4-month period. So as your district manager, I probably have the least impact, think about it, insofar as individual meeting with people. The people in customer service, community watch, utility customer service, people that are out there on the fire trucks, providing all the PET services with AEDs and smoke detectors. You touch so many people, and I want to thank you for that. That's what makes our community special in many, many ways, and the people that have chosen to live here have chosen to live here because of the quality of life, and you all are very much a part of that quality of life. We discussed last time in early October the initiatives that we've been looking at. Customer service, transparency, the effective and efficient government workings, a systematic and analytical decision making, and we've added an environmental focus. Looking at the environment is a very, very important way for government to set, if you will, its mark and how we're going to establish where we are and where we're going for future generations. We talked a lot about the right sizing of our vehicles and our fleet. You know that we've gone to a lease fleet. We went over that with the scorecard presentation at our last meeting. And all of this information and what we're going to talk about is available on our website. We actually, with our LED lighting, we've taken on a large initiative over the past year, the Department of Property Management, and changed out all of the incandescent, the compact fluorescent, to LED lighting. It has been very well received. It's environmentally friendly, and it's also an enhancement of our residency as to public safety as they utilize the postal facilities and neighborhood recreation facilities in the evening. One thing that you'll notice is that we're doing away with our, what I'll term, 1,000-year styrofoam cups. We are going to more of an eco-tainer, an ecological-based container for all of our rec centers, our government facilities. Modeling right there, we have Deb Franklin, there we go, and Kenny Blocker, kind of like the Vanna Whites of our presentation, Mr. and Mrs. Vanna. And so they're showing off the cup. This is in a small way, but a very important symbol. When you think of the number of recreation centers, government buildings, firehouses, and other buildings that we occupy, our footprint is quite large. And so this is an investment. And when I say it's an investment, with like any investment, working for the environment always doesn't come cheaply. So the cheapest alternative insofar as styrofoam, looking at the overall life cycle cost, is not the best alternative. We'll talk a little bit more about that. I wanted Deb Franklin to go over our strategic planning. As a governmental unit of the state of Florida, we are participating, our senior management team, in a strategic planning session looking at our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats through a SWOT analysis. Ms. Franklin will go over that. That in turn sets, as you'll hear, a theme for how we set our goals, how we do our reviews, insofar as meeting our own individual goals that we set throughout the year. Ms. Franklin?
Hi, everybody. Hey. Okay, I know it's the end of the day, but you all can do better than that. Hi, everybody. Hi. Much better. Thank you. Thank you. So, how can we coordinate this? Left hand right here, and here we go. So, as you know, part of my title is strategic planning. But what the heck is strategic planning? Right? We keep talking about it. We keep saying that we're having these meetings. What does it mean? Well, I wanted to share with you a model of what it is. And basically, it's a variety of components that we work through in our decision-making process and how we evaluate what we all do here. So we look at our mission statement. Who knows our mission statement? Anybody? Nobody. All right. Well, in case you didn't know, our mission statement is provide responsible and accountable public service that enhances and sustains the community. That's our mission statement. That's what we do every day. That's every time we get up and go to work and do our jobs and come and share our environment with our community. That's why we're doing it. And that's our how. So if you look at the mission statement as our how, then that falls into our vision statement. And our vision statement, in case you don't know, is what we want to accomplish. It is to be respected as the most responsible and responsive community development district. Mr. Bear will tell you later because he steals some of my thunder, but we are one of the biggest communities like this in the nation. So we are unique just by virtue of that. So when we look at that, our mission is our how, the vision is the why, where we want to get to in the future. How are we going to get there is through our strategy. That's the piece that we worked on as department heads. That's the piece that gives us the SWOT state that Mr. Bear was referencing. And then we have our SMART goals. So how many people this year, when you had your performance evaluations, were given SMART goals? Things were specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, time-oriented. There's a reason for that. You're a part of this plan. This isn't just senior management coming up with stuff for what the district is going to do. This is all of us coming together and being responsible for what pieces of the puzzle we have to accomplish. And at the end of it all, we look at our outcomes. Remember in the last statement, Mr. Bear talked to us about the balanced score sheet, right? And where everybody saved money, what department saved money, what department did something creative. All of that, that's what we look at, and that's called the balanced scorecard. Our environment is what can interfere with our strategies and our plans. We can't control that. That might be something the district grows more, we have a change in finances, whatever it might be, that's the piece that we have no control over. But what supports us every day? What are the things that help guide us? What's left up on the screen? Core values. So our core values are what support us all the way through this process, from the mission all the way through to our balanced scorecard. How we behave, how we achieve what we're doing. So our strategy this year was to go through this process. The senior management did a team building. We had to learn to communicate well together. We had to work well together. We had to not be siloed. We need to, just because you're in this department doesn't mean you can't work well with another department. And that's translating throughout the entire organization. We did a SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The SWOT analysis means that we have to be open in our discussion about what things are for us, what things are challenges for us. From that, we looked at our overall goals. What areas can we design projects and processes to move us again towards our mission and our vision? And then from that comes our department goals, and then from that comes our team goals. So when you got your performance reviews and you got your goals, that was all part of this process of streamlining all the way down to what I refer to as the boots on the ground. Most important people here, because you're carrying out our mission for us. Balanced scorecard is our outcomes. At the end of the season or the year or the fiscal year, we look at that to see how well we've done compared to what our goals were. And then we look at lessons learned to say, all right, what could we have done better? What didn't we expect? What did we do really well? And what things do we want to change and continue to work on? And then at the end of that, the district manager, Mr. Bear, Mr. Blocker, assistant district manager, they get together and reevaluate and see where we're going from there. So what we look at a SWOT, we're looking at internal strengths, and I'm not going to read through all these, and I don't expect the people in the back to see all of these things, right? But I wanted you to see the visual. I wanted you to see that we don't just look at a couple things, we're looking at a lot of different things. Some of the things might be an internal strength for our organization is that we have a rapid response to concerns, questions, and issues. I don't think there's a government entity around that responds to things as quickly as we do. We have financial stability. We have longevity of our senior staff. We have support of elected officials. All of these things were the things that we said are important to our continued growth. These are our strengths. From that, we looked at internal weaknesses. Where are there opportunities for us to improve? Not that we're weak, but where can we improve? And it might be lack of connectivity to surrounding governments. How do we communicate? Our asset management system, when we put in a work order for something, where does it go? How long does it take to get there? How many purchase orders do we need? Things like that. Our labor pool of resources, how are we recruiting? We can be better at that. How can we be better at that? All right, so those are some of the weaknesses that we looked at. We looked at external opportunities. What things are outside of us that we can take advantage of? And those are things like communications plans, looking at strategic planning, looking at IT services, improving our technology. Those are things that would help us. And then from there, we looked at external threats. What things could threaten our success? So it could be that the continued growth that we have, so rapid. How do we deal with that? How do we prepare for it? The size of our geographic area might be not a good thing, and how do we approach it and prepare for it? Looking at our services, looking at cultural uniqueness as a retirement community. Average age, I think, is 60 to 65 now in our community. Got that? It's up? It's 67. So what does that mean in our community when we look at our services and how we provide programs and all? So that's what the senior management team, we took that time and did all that analysis, and from that came other issues and opportunities. So what we decided to focus on were these areas for this fiscal year. That means we're looking at developing a master communications plan. Carrie Duckett's going to be working on that process with the department heads and looking at how we communicate internally amongst departments and amongst each other, and how we communicate externally to our community, our residents, our visitors, our guests. Continuing to organize processes and procedures to alleviate redundancies and to create efficiencies. Now, how many times have we heard about efficiencies and redundancies, right? But when you have a report, how many people get it? Why do they get it? Are we just doing it because it's always been done? So those are the things that we're going to make a real good effort at looking at to improve. Asset management, not only the protection of our physical assets, but how do we work when we're assigned projects? And how do we make sure that those projects are effective in rolling them through? So there's project management training that's going on. How many people in the room have signed up for project management? Anybody? This morning there were a few. Okay, good. So that's when you get assigned a project. It's not just how do you manage multiple priorities, it's how do you start a project, how do you keep the cost down, how do you meet the timelines, all of those things. Completion of capital projects, continue to enhance our customer service, which is always going to be a focus of ours, and our fiscal management. How well are we doing there? Okay.
So doing all of this, of course, as you know, takes a lot of money, a lot of effort. We were very fortunate through our efforts last fiscal year, all of your efforts, part of the senior management team efforts, to be able to bring in an all-in budget, $336 million. So that is actually less than the prior fiscal year's budget by several $1 million. We talked about how that came about as a result of the scorecards and all the efficiencies achieved by the department. Much of it was due to the efficiencies that were received insofar as our fleet management and outsourcing our fleet, and also our maintenance of our fleet, FICA alternative, and the number of contractual if you will, enhancements that we have, how we provide our services. I do want you to have a general understanding that as we start, it seems like we're always in the first part of it. It seems like we're always in the budgeting sort of cycle. We are starting our budgeting cycle. We have a very transparent budget cycle. When I go out and I speak to the VHA, Rotary, or a number of groups, one thing I hear is that I don't really understand how I know how to become involved with my budgeting insofar as my district government, or NSCA, the North Sumter County Utility Dependent District. How do I know how to become involved with that? All of those scheduled meetings, we usually have 60 plus meetings for all these different districts, 17 dependent and independent districts. They're all available online, posted, the agenda. We go through a rigorous operational and a 5-year review of all of our capital projects. There are actually a number of ways that you as employees, parts of our team, can track this. You can view this online. I would invite any of you to come to, of course with your supervisor's permission, to a meeting to actually observe how we as a government set forth that budget. It is a very regimented process. We utilize DPM's experience and also their contractual entities that are pooling all information about infrastructure systems, building systems such as roofing, HVAC, electrical, flooring, to put together a replacement, a rehabilitation schedule for all of our facilities. Don't forget, as I mentioned before, we have $2 billion with a B dollars worth of horizontal and vertical infrastructure. It's just an enormity that we go through. Some things this year, you saw that the fitness funds are being, if you will, managed as one. Although there will be some separation so far as accounting, there really is a focus on managing things in a better way, as was mentioned before. That will advantage the Northern Fitness Fund up at Mulberry, where we have sort of a lesser demand as far as fitness, and we have sort of a level participation rate compared to further south, where we have the growth. And then just a reminder that if you get asked questions as part of our team as to budget and budgeting, what I would say is handle those questions if you can. If not, refer them to our OMB office. So we're available to assist in that. I did want to go through, we have a number of capital projects. Some pretty major. First of all, the Broadwood Wood Shop. We took some time in developing that sexy title there, the Broadwood Wood Shop. And the Broadwood Wood Shop is in the final design and the permitting phase. We look to start construction within the next several months of this year. That is located, of course, right behind the fire station across from the Eisenhower Regional Rec Center on Buena Vista. The Savannah Recreation Center sound system upgrade is in design, so that's a big plus insofar as service for our residents. And the First Responders Recreation Center, we're coming out of a year of intensive community input relating to survey. We had thousands of people send in considerations for the recreation facility, everything from whether or not there should be an outdoor sauna, there should be an adult or a family pool center, tracks, dog parks, expansions of buildings, a number of things. That site plan is now complete and is available online. We are going into, if you will, that hard design phase. This is that facility, of course, for those of you that may not be familiar, which is off of 42 on about 20 acres. That was formerly a church facility. The Village's Public Safety Department, of course, we're finishing up in March, just next month, with the PAR station, allowing us to get that larger vehicle, that tower ladder vehicle in there to provide a better, if you will, response for our VPSD, and also hopefully to bring that ISO, that insurance type rating, down to a 1. South Morris Fire Station and the customer service satellite facility, that is, of course, well underway since last summer, July. We have over 1,000 residents that we have served. We offer all the same services there as we do up at Lake Sumter Landing. So anything you can do up at Lake Sumter Landing, you can do at that satellite facility. Think of that satellite facility in 44 really as a demarcation, as a new center of the Villages. You've heard and read about that there are roughly 70 square miles south of State Road 44. Right now we have over 3,000 homes that exist in the villages that are part of District 12 and the Fenney and surrounding villages. So that is the growth area. If you head further south on Morris and you go over 44, you'll see on the left the village of Chitty Chatty that at the end of February, early March, we'll be releasing homes for sale and for occupancy. So there really is a lot of growth. With growth, of course, we talked about the challenges and opportunities. Opportunities come in the form of new product line so far as recreation facilities for our residents to continue to attract and really revitalize our community. If you think of communities that have not had growth, retirement communities like Sun City and others, they're great communities in and of themselves, but they're not the Villages. And the Villages is the largest single point developer CDD in the United States. So you play a role in delivering the primary choice of retirement for many, many retirees. Right now, over 130 residents. Delmar Gate, that project is finished and adding actually the laneage coming in, refabricating how residents interact with that gate attendant and rebuilding the sidewalk. An important aspect that had been discussed for many years and was completed in the fall of last year. Shea Gate entry is going to start construction, actually getting underway right now. Shea Gate is an important project. Imagine if you were a gate attendant as part of our team, you worked at the Shea Gate, and basically, I don't know how else to describe it, you had to hold it, you had to hold using the restroom until a supervisor came by and they could either drive you or you could walk down to the corner convenience store on 441-27. I know that, I see the reaction there, not a good thing. It doesn't sound like stewardship, hospitality. It doesn't sound like what we would offer our employees. So that's a major public works infrastructure project, laying in the distribution line for water, the waste lines, and adding on to that facility a restroom. That is a very important project, and one that I pledged as I went around in the evenings visiting our gate attendants and our community watch employees that we would complete during this coming year that we're in now. The Unit 56, Calumet Road, you've either read or heard about that project insofar as the district's role in the right-of-way to complete that new stormwater collection project, all in $1.5 million. The road's repaved. It really, really is an excellent project. We have taken our part to where we can go, and now the private residents have to repair their own properties. Rio Grande Air Gun Range, so we have basically a project there. It's ready to start. The contractor has had their pre-con meeting, and they're getting ready to pull the permits from the affected governmental entities. That will be a facility, of course, up north that will rival Sugarcane and bring that facility on par with residents further south see. So I wanted Kenny Blocker, our assistant district manager, to go through some major things this year that you may not have been a part of, acquisitions, and explain why those are important to us as a district government and you all as team members as well as our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Bear. So, good evening. Is everyone excited about this information? A lot of good information that we're sharing. And that's why we're here to share the information that sometimes you may not hear or know about. And one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is in the month of December, we actually had 3 very important closings within the district. The first one was we issued about 90 million plus in bonds for District 13 Phase 1. So that's south of 44. That's the new district that's being developed. And the interesting thing about the issuance of those bonds, about 90 million plus, was you heard all the things we do, stewardship. You know, we're looking to maintain the villages in the form and fashion that people bought into. Well, the investors believe that so much in how we maintain the villages. They see District 1 through District 12. We put the offering out for 90 million plus in bonds. They essentially were sold in about 30 minutes. The investors love the villages. They know that we, collectively, everyone in this room, is going to maintain and take care of what we have here, because we want to maintain the integrity of the villages in perpetuity, and they know everyone in this room plays a part in doing that. So in about 30 minutes, we sold $90 million worth of bonds. Now, we kept the order period open for a couple more hours, so we oversubscribed by 6 times. So what does that do to us? It drives the price down. People love this debt because they know we're going to maintain it and take care of it. So that was an interesting development that we closed for that Phase 1 of District 13 in December. The other one that we closed was we bought the 300 amenities in Phillips and Solier. So not only did we purchase the rec centers associated with that, the neighborhood pools there, we also bought the 300 amenities. So each month we get the revenue for the 300 amenities that came along with that. The last one was a big one where we purchased Central Sumter Utility. So INSCA, the North Sumter County Utility Dependent District, purchased Central Sumter Utilities. Much like they did NSU, North Sumter Utilities, years ago, they purchased CSU. So why is that important? It's important because now we have a local government operating, maintaining, setting policy for a utility that serves the residents in a particular utility service area. So no longer is the PSC, Public Service Commission in Tallahassee, dictating rates and changes in policy. It is now our local government that does that. So that's very, very important. That's one of the functions that government has, is to operate utilities for their residents. So if there's an issue or a rate set that needs to be taking place, they come to the local board for INSCA. So that's very important. Those 3 transactions closed in December. So if anyone asks you about those, this is what it's about. District 13, we issued debt. We bought the 300 amenities up at Phillips and Solier, and we bought Central Sumter Utilities. 3 major transactions that we closed in December. Just wanted to share that with you in case someone asks you. You can tell them you know some information about it. So the next thing I wanted to just talk to you about real quickly is in looking at the business side of the house. OMB, Office of Management and Budget, Purchasing, Finance. The big initiative this year for the business side of the house is bringing on a new software platform, BSNA. Several years ago, we brought BSNA in for the utility side, for the utility billing. Now we're completing the suite on the finance side. So that is the big conversion that we're doing this year, hopefully to go live in March. Now we know there'll be some bumps in the road, there'll be some hurdles, but at the end of the day, the information that we will be able to obtain in the utilization of this software program will be essentially light years above what we currently have. One of the most unique things is it'll bring us into a situation where we become paperless. Things will be routed electronically. One of our initiatives is environmentally friendly, like Mr. Bear talked about, the eco-friendly cups. We're also trying to go more paperless and becoming more eco-friendly in that respect as well. Much like if you have a purchase order now, it is all completed requisition, purchase order by paper, signature, people walking it around, get people to sign off on. Now it will be all through a function in the system, electronically routed to all the users that need to sign off on. Same with accounts payable, people will sign off, approve purchases electronically. So it'll put us in a position now that we can go paperless and have a more efficient system, much like Mr. Bear spoke about. One of our goals is efficiency and government efficiency. So that will do that for us, as well as being able to provide us with a lot of information, a report writer function that we can go and now write reports to give us information that will help us all make decisions. Another unique thing about that is it'll be able to encumber funds on a purchase order. Right now, we issue a purchase order manually, and we essentially keep track of how much we pay off on that purchase order by hand, maybe in an Excel spreadsheet. We will now join the real world and have a encumbrance system in our purchase order system. So you issue a purchase order for $10,000, you pay off $5,000 of it, the system will know you have $5,000 left. You will not have to keep it manually, so that's another great benefit. A lot of big benefits to this. We know it's going to take time, we get a lot of training, but eventually, at the end of the day, there's light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. The other big conversion we're looking at is the P-card program, the purchasing card program. We're currently transitioning from Bank of America to JP Morgan Chase. Once again, a platform that's going paperless. Your receipts will be scanned and then sent through your approval system, through the Chase system. And on top of that, we'll get a bigger rebate. So right now we get essentially a 1.5 or whatever on a rebate. We'll get a little bit more, so you get money back to the districts at a higher degree. So we talked about environmentally friendly purchasing. We're talking paperless. We're talking the eco-tainer. This has been a big push from the district, as well as the North Sumter County Utility Dependent District, looking at their solid waste management plan, looking at going more environmentally friendly. Capital budgeting and planning. OMB is working in conjunction with the departments and maintaining the projects and looking at their budgets and making sure that we're on target, both in time and in funds, and be able to report back to the board on those projects and when they're becoming due through a timeline. And lastly, with finance, they're looking at financial statements. They've consolidated those, made more of a summary page, more easy to read, easily to understand for the non-financial reader, and also looking at continued efficiencies with pooling cash. Right now, we probably have 50 to 60 different accounts. We're looking to consolidate that for ease in accounting and ease in management. So a lot of big things happening behind the scenes in the back office, but know that we are all working toward the goals of efficiency, transparency, and customer service, both internal and external. All right. Very good. And now Mr. Bear.
Thank you, Kenny. So just want to highlight, and we really struggled with what to pull off because there was so much that was accomplished last year. But on this first slide, technology and board support services, just wanted to highlight a few things. First of all, cybersecurity. We spend a lot of time with our contractor TSG and staff to make sure that we maintain, insofar as protection of infrastructure, a very safe environment in which to work. Please be careful relating to what you click on, who you get it from. If you have any doubt, because we never ask for any sort of updates or information by email, please contact Brittany Wilson or a member of our staff. The next three bullets to replace go to My PC Services, commercial internet use agreement, and also consolidated copier lease. These again follow that thinking of we can do a better job in delivering sort of the same service, whether internal or external, and portray those savings. After all, every dollar that we save, it is a dollar that can be reinvested in something else, whether it is paying for additional people, paying for salary considerations during budgeting, or other efforts. Again, a better way to do business. So I'm not going to read each one of those to you, but a better way to do business. Board support services, it may not be the sexiest thing for you all, but I will tell you that having updated board policies, rules, and procedures, they were last done. This is how the boards, our governing officials operate during their meetings, how they take input from residents, how they appoint interim, midterm vacancy replacements, how they actually populate, create their agenda. It was last formulated the template in the late 90s, 1998, 99. If you think of the changes, the way that civil discourse has been, if you think with our governmental entities, federal, state, and local, if you think of the changes in technology, if you think of the way that the changes, the way that people interact with their government, and so far as technology, great changes have been made. That was a major accomplishment. One of those things behind the scenes where you have a 25-page document and you're all happy about it and you take it out and the boards approve it and it's all behind the scenes. But it's very, very important, especially as I interact with the boards and members of the public. Things like utilizing technology like up in Savannah where we have our huge drop-down screen. Remember, our average age public is, for our residents, 67 years old. So you've got to think that we have a different demographic here than the city of Clearwater, city of Jacksonville, Pittsburgh, a number of other cities and counties around the country. It's very different. So we approach things in a different way. Again, a better way to use technology and to serve our residents. Recreation and parks, again, leading the way with regard to accreditation. You'll hear that several other agencies are going through that accreditation. Accreditation, of course, doesn't mean, having been on an accreditation council myself for American Public Works Association, it doesn't mean that you are better, but it means that you meet and or exceed all of those practices across every aspect of your department. And we have several agencies, including Community Watch and others, that are looking at and going through accreditation. So hats off to Recreation Parks as they continue across the state of just one of 24 agencies that are accredited. Additional installation of digital messaging. If you look at the new recreation centers down in Everglades in District 12, how many people have been down there? So many of you, most of you that have been down there are recreation employees, but for those of you who have been down there, go down and look at how the change in internal and external landscape is so different. Inside the building in Everglades, the information, again, going toward an environmentally friendly, more ecologically minded mentality. You're looking at actually how the information is displayed on outside the room display boards. We're looking at actually the expansion of digital information for our employees, sharing the Rep News where it's basically very easily searchable on our District Gov Board website. That doesn't mean it's a replacement for that print media, but what it means is it's a part of our communication strategy. Fillable online application forms, making it easier for our residents to interact with the government. Again, just like we've done down in customer service with the satellite facility. And if you look at the overall communication, we'll be talking about that as part of our PWAC, Project-Wide Advisory Committee, and AAC, you will see that the Rec News and all of our districtgovernment.org website, parts to it, both the Rec News as well as the Recreation Parks homepages, these meetings and a number of workshops that we've had enhance our action communication with our residents. Customer service. So customer service, although we all provide customer service, we have one group that really focuses broadly on customer service. And that group, as I mentioned, has served over 1,000 residents out of that satellite facility. Looking at that first bullet, you can see that they've taken over, if you will, the Community Watch interface with the public, not providing those adult services, adult watch, resident out of the area, and home check services. But as of October 19, they are taking on the application phase of that. That allows us, it's a new way of thinking, it allowed us to basically say, how can we utilize our existing staff that have the resources, the knowledge to provide that customer service, and not add an additional staff walking in, interrupting those people at the desk that are doing other functions in Community Watch. So a different way of approaching it. You're going to continue to see, as part of our district government, as you will across all governments, that look to efficiency and to efficiently render those services. We provided a third workshop for our residents. That continuing education is important as we have residents that move in and out of the area. After all, you've probably heard the saying, there are 3 moves within the villages that our residents make while they're here. And we have a number of new residents moving in every year, besides those 3 moves. So this workshop focused for hundreds of residents on Florida-friendly landscaping. The prior 2 workshops were on stormwater management and advanced wastewater treatment. It's very important for many of our residents to understand how to interact with their government. After all, we are more like a city government than any other type of government, and we lack 2 basic fundamental aspects of a city government. The actual planning, building services, and C of O sort of building permitting, as well as law enforcement. But all other aspects are virtually the same. Our residents who have moved here from other areas don't really understand what is NSCUD, North Sumter County Utility Dependent District. Where does the water that I utilize and leaves my home and the wasteline go, and how is it repurposed? What are the benefits of a master plan stormwater management system? What are all these multimodal paths, and how do they reduce the trip ends that people see insofar as traveling to and from destinations from residences within the villages? Executive Golf. With the hiring of Mitch Leininger and retooling of his team of people, we have seen a new synergy insofar as partnering with the championship golf staff of the developer. And that's important in a number of ways, because after all, we have a number of agronomy experts that deal both with championship and executive golf courses, and benefiting from that interactive relationship is so important. One of the things that I'm most excited about is the mapping aspect of what we're going through with all of our golf courses. Making sure that all of our infrastructure, once turned over, you know it can be altered. Benches are added, landscaping is moved around. We basically take what are sand traps and they're filled in. Having all of that in one place, we can better manage that part of our infrastructure. The last 3 deal with, if you will, a different way of thinking insofar as things like even janitorial services, maintenance, and also refurbished parts, saving the district money. Again, repurposing those dollars, not showing a diminution of services for our residents, but repurposing those dollars for other uses. Now I'd like to ask Blair Bean of District Property Management to come up and go over one of the main initiatives that we have this year, which is retooling this department. With the departure of, we'll talk about in just a second, Mr. Whartonby, and the need to restructure because of a number of pressures, internal and external, this department is in a unique sort of stance to serve both internal and external customers in a new way. Mr. Bean?
Thank you, Richard. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Blair Bean. I'm Assistant Director of District Property Management. And so Richard alluded to what's happening is, so as the district takes all these initiatives, and you saw them in the previous slides, that there's the strategic planning for the district to address our strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. within DPM, our strategic planning is directly aligned with the strategic planning for the district. So how do we do things within our department, as we're a unique department in that we service not only the residents and maintain the assets that the residents enjoy to the expectation that they have, but how do we also support all the other departments in their business functions and doing the things that they need to do. So with that, we had two areas of focus for ourselves, and that was, what do we need to do within our operations to deal with some of these challenges, and then what do we need to do within our organization as far as our staffing and the assignment of tasks to meet those goals. So the first thing we'll talk about a little bit is the organization. So last year within the department, our focus was really on efficiencies and creating those efficiencies, which was part of the strategic planning for the district. And we took that on and said, this year we really need to focus on that. And that was in fiscal year 18-19. Now for fiscal year 19-20, we said, hey, let's keep our momentum going with this efficiency planning and trying to find how we can save money within our budget. But now we need to focus on teamwork. Let's see, how are we going to build this team that's going to carry us into the future with all these other things going into the, into the future that were in the previous slide, such as, we obtain more assets. We're taking on more districts, and with taking on more districts, we're also taking on, more assets through that. How do we adapt to keep pace with, the strategic planning of the district? How do we change to keep up with the changes for BS&A? How do we change to move into asset management? So these are all changes that we have to adapt to on a daily basis to keep the organization moving forward, and not just looking at what are we doing tomorrow, but what are we doing next year, and what are we doing 5 years from now to stay in front of things. So as part of that, we want to have our strategic planning for efficiencies within our organization to say, we have these efficiency goals, how do we align our people to meet these goals? And then the other thing that we're looking at is we have some older staff members that probably would like to retire, within the next 5 to 10 years, or maybe some of them within a month. And how do we align ourselves to have people that come into the organization and get trained up, so when those opportunities arise, there's already somebody in the organization that can step into that role and move, and we don't miss a step. So we haven't gotten to that point yet, but really what we're thinking is we need to be there, and that's part of one of our goals, is to think that way. So from the operational side, another thing is with the growth. So how do we deal with the growth? We have such a large area right now. It's 50 square miles and growing. But there's a development south of 44 now at a fairly rapid pace. So how do we cope with that? So one of the strategic things we thought about was, we have a lot of staff that's continually driving from District 12 and District 13 area back and forth to our office at Lake Sumter Landing. We have this opportunity to have a space down there. And we have 6 staff members that their whole route and their whole responsibility is south of 466A. So it really made sense to say, hey, we really need to look at moving some staff down there, because we're going to need more resources further south as we move on. So we're moving forward to that. I believe we're moving staff into the office February 17th to start that effort. We look at standardizations. How can we do things better? So we're doing a Rainbird pump station standardization, and an irrigation part standardization, and a Nova Sports court surfacing standardization. So what's a standardization? We say, hey, we want to make all of our facilities the same and provide the same experience or the same level of service of that. So in order to do that, we want to use a product, because by using one product, if we ever have to service it, we can have parts in stock, we know what our pricing is, we can set up contracts. Those things are really good. So as an example with sport court surfacing, as it used to be back when we were much smaller, we could just write a work order. We'd write a work order, we'd go do it. We'd have it done within a week. Well, now we can't do that anymore. Just to buy the product for us now is more than $50,000 a year. So we have to go through the purchasing process to buy the product. So really, it helps us to get a standardization so we can set up a longer term contract. So every time we do a project, we don't have to go out to bid. So that's another part of how we're trying to optimize operationally. Turf maintenance expectation, that's a big one for us as we move south. There's a lot of open space and natural areas, and one of the things that we were talking about is, so cost-wise and not to lose the aesthetics, how do we maintain these areas? Are we going to maintain them to a park-like setting where we mow them every single month? Or are we going to leave them in a more natural state where we maybe only have to mow them once every 3 months in the wintertime? And by doing that, we save money for the district by coming up with this creative way to manage that. Facility asset management review. So last year we did the regional recreation centers, and this year, and the village rec centers. This year we're going to focus on the neighborhood recreation centers and the fire stations. So what we do in that is we go through the buildings and say, hey, let's look at the buildings overall and see if we're maintaining them the proper way, and are we replacing equipment at the frequency we need to replace equipment, and if we're not, what does that look like in a 5-year or 10-year budget, so we can kind of plan out to see if we're on the right track. Gate camera maintenance program. So this was a big one for us over here, probably the last 3 months, as we went from having a 90-day turnaround on cameras to a 30-day turnaround at cameras at gatehouses, just from looking at where we were not getting the efficiencies. And what ended up, we found out that our holdup was getting cameras from a supplier. So what we said is, hey, let's develop an inventory program, and let's buy the cameras that we think we're going to need and keep them in inventory and track our inventory level so that we can continually provide that nonstop service. We modified our fertilizer program. So with that, we get 2 benefits. We get a cost benefit of not applying as much fertilizer. We only apply the fertilizer that we need, but then we also reduce the runoff that takes the fertilizer and then puts nutrients in the ponds, which requires us to go back and spray for algae treatments. So it's kind of a double savings there by doing that modification. And then the last one is the new janitorial contract. So the old janitorial contracts expired. So the reason why this one's on here is because this is an opportunity. So they expired, we went back out to bid. We did not get the same janitorial companies that we had before. We got one of the same ones, we got 2 brand new ones. So when you look at a new company moving in and taking on the responsibility of trying to manage all these facilities, of course we're going to go through some hiccups. So this first month, January was their first month, we've had some lapses in service, and we've had quite a few meetings with them to try to bring them online as they try to adapt to this high level of service, which may not be the same level of service that's expected from their other customers, but to make them realize that, no, this is the level of service for this contract and this is what we have to provide. So this is just to let all the other departments know that you may see this lapse, but the property management folks are working on it. So we will get it corrected. So the next piece is I want to briefly go through what we did for our organizational changes, just to give everyone an idea of how we thought about this. So if you look at this, you won't be able to read the boxes, and that was one of the comments from this morning, but that long line across the upper part is our management level. And so those management levels represented the divisions that we broke into last fiscal year when we went through some changes and said, hey, it really made great sense if we broke into divisions, so we were focused on certain areas and we had a certain level of expertise in every area. So what we said is, as positions came vacant, we would look back at those positions and see if we were really using that staffing position to do exactly what we needed. So we had a special projects manager. The special projects manager basically was helping out with special projects for facilities. So when that person was no longer in that position, we said, hey, this is an opportunity for us to do something with this, and they were supporting facilities, and oh my gosh, we have so many contracts to write within facilities, it would be great to repurpose that position and move it into facilities. So we took that, we made an assistant manager position, and we moved it over under the facilities group. Then, not too much longer after that, the environmental manager decided that they wanted to be employed somewhere else, so then we had an opportunity to look at what we were doing with our environmental management. So environmental management was kind of split between our landscaping, water resources, and our infrastructure. So what we said is, well, maybe it makes sense to blend that in with those groups, and we said we really want to beef up our infrastructure group because 3 of the supervisors in the infrastructure group were reporting to one manager and 3 of them were reporting to the other manager, but then they were overall reporting to both managers. And we said that really doesn't make sense for us. So we said, let's take that environmental position there and make that into an assistant manager position over in infrastructure, and then we'll move those other supervisors over too, and then we'll have a much more linear organization. And then we said, well, we have a vacancy here, let's create an opportunity. So our opportunity was, we said, let's take this supervisor position, and then we'll make that an opportunity for a trainee. So then that's where we get that successorship in, where we can bring somebody in that maybe doesn't have as much experience, but we provide them an opportunity to come into the organization and learn how to do the job and bring some energy and some new thoughts into the organization. So that's how we move the people. So how do we move the tasks? Like I said, we had a special projects manager, and most of what they were working on was supporting our facilities anyway. So we took the trails, the fitness and the walking trails, the sports courts and the dog parks, and we moved them really where they belong, which was over with facilities. And then we have the Memorial Bench program, which we said, well, we'll figure that out in a minute. And then we said, hey, we have all these environmental things that really are duties of the Water Resources Department, so we moved those over from the environmental manager. And then we took everything that really belonged in infrastructure and moved it over into infrastructure. And then effectively what we did is we streamlined our organization. So by doing that, we set ourselves up, still being in division, but also being much more linear in our organization, so we didn't have multiple people reporting to different managers, which was really getting hard for staff because, you know, they would get confused sometimes because one person would tell them to do something and somebody else might tell them to do something else. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Richard, and he'll finish up the presentation.
So thank you. So I think really the bottom line there is you can see that there is a large retooling of a department that serves us in many ways, both internal and external. That goes along with the themes that we've been talking about, and I want to touch on public safety. Public safety really is at the core of what we do. So the cities and counties around the county incorporate because they're providing a public service and a public safety function. I think it's important to point out there were hundreds of things that the fire chief and his staff had submitted insofar as accomplishments. But I did want to point out that the VPSD received over 6,600 calls for smoke detector assistance in 2019. This seems like a little thing, but when you think of the number of calls that they received and the preventative measure insofar as assisting those people, that is again goes back to our caring part of our community, what we offer our residents. I also want to point out that our fire department, when you look at it compared to fire departments around us that are a little bit more rural, offers a turn-on average response time of really 4 minutes and 20 seconds. That response time, when compared to the other surrounding jurisdictions, is about 40 to 50% of their total response time. When you think of getting there in time to serve someone who has actually had a medical or a fire need, those seconds are critical. Station 40 up at par, we're at basically, we mentioned 95% complete with a completion next month. That will enable us again with that ISO rating to serve our residents. We'll be one of the only jurisdictions with a rating of 1 that may translate into insurance savings for our residents. And AED, you think of those grassroots efforts that our fire department, John Longacre, and a number of PTs spend so much time working on those grassroots defibrillator service areas. We have so many uses for them, so many cardiac saves. We are a jurisdiction that if you were to go down to the fire department, you would see actually many stories relating to the save rates there. Just incredible. Really, last but certainly not least, Community Watch. We had to Paragon Chief Wolf and his staff, and I see Jules back there, and all the things that they submitted, the many things that they do. First of all, through the right sizing of the fleet training insofar as driving, and the cart fit and all of those programs, we've had a reduction in fuel consumption of 25%. That's incredible when you think of the number of miles that they drive every year. Going past every resident twice per day. Just incredible. I know that where I live, 5:30 to 5:45, Joel comes riding by. Hi, Mr. Bear, how you doing? Every day. Then I moved. I thought I wouldn't see Joel. Joel found me, still comes riding by. Hi, Mr. Bear, how you doing? So I will tell you that when people say, what does Community Watch do? There's so many things, both eyes and ears of the community, and also identification when we're all sleeping, of those ever-present sort of depressions where people say, is that a sinkhole? Well, no, it may just be a depression along a joint of a pipe, but they detect it first. Seeing that actually, well, those new homes, why are people crawling out of the windows of those new homes? They must not live there, right? In the wee hours when we're asleep. A number of things that are community assist issues. They as well are pursuing a dispatch state of Florida certification, so I look forward to you achieving that. They're moving right along with that. And then we've got basically the completion of the gate ops renovation. So looking for that to take off this year now that we have a design. That is to be able to house and better serve our gate ops employees that are 24/7 keeping an eye on those gates. People ask about the gates providing, why do we have them? We're not a gated community. Well, we're not a gated community, but if you go ahead and you look at the annuals that we provided so far as flowers, we say, you could save money by removing them, Mr. Bear. Well, you could. And we could go from 4-board to 3-board, 3-board to 2-board, 2-board. Let's take down the fences. Let's not replace the trees. Let's take down the gates. We certainly will be living in the villages that, let's replace these chairs with Walmart folding chairs. Nothing wrong with Walmart, but it certainly isn't the chairs you're sitting on here. I would remind you after an hour of sitting, imagine what you would, parts of your body feel like if you were on Walmart chairs. I do want to mention one of the things with regard to customer service and transparency, National Night Out. So National Night Out, of course, for many of you, is a time for our employees of public safety, community watch, law enforcement, working with the law enforcement that are within the villages, to reach out to our community members through throughout the community. It'll be in this October in the evenings, to have various cookout areas where people get to speak with those employees, community watch, fire, emergency management, our municipal law enforcement, county sheriff, and understand who they are that provide those basic protective life services. So that's a big program that we are engaging in this year. So, okay, we're finally there. It's an hour, I'm a few minutes over. I do want to ask one employee, Sam Mortonby, to come up. I know. This morning we had 458 people. Tonight we have just under 200 people here. Very few of us will be able to say that we spent I'm not trying to age them, a quarter of a century in one place serving residents. And when
He's been 26.
he's a little younger. So when we actually coming in, I thought to myself, gee, with Sam, what can you really say? Well, I've known Sam before I started with the district, and when I was the assistant county administrator, I was respected that Sam would say, oh yeah, I know over there on Hillsborough, that manhole. Well, yeah, that manhole was actually moved 3 feet because, well, he knew all of the infrastructure because he's been here since the beginning of time. So one of the things that I will say is you can say certain people's names, and that person's name, you know exactly who it is. Liberace. When you say Sam, I know you're not a piano player, but when you say Sam and you're anywhere in the village, people say, oh, Sam Mortonby. Oh yeah, Sam Mortonby. I've talked to him when it comes to a road, curb and gutter, pressure washing, striping, annual planting, trees, multimodal path, plats, and more plats. Yep, Sam said dog poop. Okay, that's your, I don't want to make that your claim to fame. But I do want to say that his name is synonymous with knowledge, support, and good customer service. I wanted to thank him and invite Blair Bean up and thank him and thank Sam for 25 years of service. Before Blair starts, I want to give Sam a little something here. I asked people, what would Sam like? And so I got a lot of results, but many of them I can't give him in a government facility. So these are gift cards that you can use. They're for Winn-Dixie, but think about it for a second. No, you can use them for any sort of sustenance that you would like to acquire. I just want to say
DPM staff stand up, please? Yes. So, one of the things okay, so one of the things I can say about Sam is, coming on, Sam is 100% in on DPM. I mean, he's 100%. And one of the most important things for Sam was that when it was time for him to retire, he wanted to know that DPM would move forward. And I want to thank all of you for making him feel confident that we'll be successful moving forward.
I was given an opportunity back in '94 to come down here. I thought Florida was a big swamp, but I came down from Michigan, and offered me a job, and best move ever. It's been a hell of a ride.
Again, I want to thank each of you. Our next meeting will be in June. We continually try to focus and refocus these meetings on topical issues that we think will be of interest and also beneficial for you all. I know that Deb Franklin will be sending out a Survey Monkey. If you have ideas that you would like us to cover insofar as informational, now I know you all want to know when Rich is going to go over the turnpike. That's not one of our projects. When Magnolia is going to have a Publix, when we're going to get a Harris Teeter, when we're going to, a lot of those things are outside the district government. But thinking of the district government, our purview, if you have ideas, we would solicit them from you through that Survey Monkey. Please send those in. And again, thank you, and thank you for all of your hard work.